Hello, and welcome to the Kennet Riverside virtual walk. We're going to be taking a short stroll alongside the River Kennet. This is a chance for you to take a moment to pause, reflect, and unwind while walking with me. Throughout this walk, I'll be telling you a little bit about the history of the area, but I think it's important to also stop sometimes and look around, to be present and to notice. So during this walk, I won't always be talking to you. We'll be stopping and taking mindful moments. You don't have to do anything. Just notice, breathe, and give yourself some time to observe. So let's begin. What I want to do today is show you a little bit of this part of Reading, walking by the riverside, and talk to you about how important the river has been to the town for many hundreds of years. This is Reading in Berkshire. The river has already flowed through 3 other towns: Marlborough, Hungerford and Newbury. We're going to start our walk here, outside the entrance of Reading Abbey, which dates back to 1121 and seems always to have had a connection with monarchs called Henry. Henry I founded the abbey, although he died before its completion. He was buried in front of the high altar in 1136. Henry II and Henry III both visited the abbey, but it was mostly destroyed by Henry VIII in the dissolution of the monasteries. After that, for the best part of 200 years, this is where you came if you were looking for Reading Town Hall. The Abbey's inner gateway still stands, adjoining Reading Crown Court and Forbury Gardens. It is one of only 2 Abbey buildings that have survived intact. The ruins of Reading Abbey have been used many times for open-air performances. On our left is Reading Jail, where playwright and poet Oscar Wilde was imprisoned for 2 years in 1895. After he was released, he went to live in Paris, where just 3 years later he died. While he was here, he composed the poem The Ballad of Reading Jail, whose most familiar line is probably, "Yet each man kills the thing he loves." Where we're walking now is in fact named after the poet, the Oscar Wilde Memorial Walk. Let's head down the steps onto the riverside and take a moment to look. There are buildings old and new. Notice the reflections on the water. Listen to the different sounds. Nature, traffic, and life bustling past. Our next destination is Blake's Wharf, not to be confused with Blake's Lock, a little further up the river. Situated on the first mile of the River Kennet on its junction with the River Thames, Blake's Lock was originally a flash lock, known as Brokenberg Lock. But we won't be walking quite that far today. Let's head under Forbury Roads Bridge and see if we can spot any wildlife. Let's go down to Blake's Wharf itself. Here, we get a real glimpse of Reading old and new, where moored canal boats hark back to a time of pre-industrial river trade, along from the Thames and down the Kennet. Now, new buildings are springing up, reminding us that Reading, originally known as Redingham, has seen construction and change since the 8th century. It was the biggest town in Berkshire by 1525, making a lot of its money from cloth. Opposite is the derelict remains of one of the buildings of the former Gasworks Company, built in 1903. To our left is Gasworks Road Bridge, which had two mains under the road surface that were designed to carry the gas. There are only 6 streets in all of Great Britain called Gasworks Road. Here is the shield for Reading Gas Company. Let's take a closer look. Now, we'll take a moment to look back down the river the way we came. You can see Reading's tallest building, the Blade, in the distance. And you may even be able to spot some wildlife as it flies overhead. At the end of Gasworks Road Bridge is another of Reading's iconic buildings. Historically, Reading was built on 3 B's: beer, bulbs, and biscuits. This building is about the biscuits. It still has the Huntley and Palmer logo on it, as we'll see in a moment. But it's not the factory. That was demolished. In 1841, the Huntley and Palmer building was the largest biscuit factory in the world. So much so that Reading was nicknamed Biscuit Town. It was all thanks to Joseph Huntley and George Palmer. This building was the social club building. Huntley and Palmer had the wonderful idea of putting biscuits in tins so that they would stay fresher for longer. Another wonderful idea was to put beautiful pictures on the tins. And those Huntley and Palmer tins are now highly collectible all over the world. Up there, the Kennet flows into the Thames itself. In 1404, the abbot of Reading Abbey, who was in charge of the river, negotiated with the town's guild to let boats pass through Blake's Lock for a penny. We're now looking up at the bridge we were just on, King's Road. As we pass under and through the bridge, let's talk about the second B of Reading's 3 Bs. Bulbs, or to be more exact, seeds. Sutton's Seeds, the company, were founded in Reading in 1806. Originally, they were corn merchants, but by the turn of the 20th century they had expanded into the flower and vegetable seed trade, taking advantage of the opening of the Great Western Railway and receiving the approval of Queen Victoria herself. The bridge up ahead is Watlington Street. Further along the street is Watlington House, one of Reading's oldest buildings, with its western part dating from 1688. The frontage of the house, on Watlington Street itself, dates back from 1763. One Captain Edward Purvis was the house's first recorded occupant, living there from 1794. His ghost is still said to be lurking in the house, dressed in his distinctive red coat and puffing on his pipe. As we walk back towards the centre of Reading, there are still opportunities for mindfulness. To notice reflections, find wildlife, to be present and observe. we're heading towards Reading's oldest surviving bridge. It used to be called Duke Street Bridge, but is now named High Bridge. For many years it formed the downstream limit towards the old Simmons Brewery, on the site where the Oracle now stands. The brewery provides us with our third B, beer. The brewery was founded in 1785, and since 1813, Simmons had supplied beer to the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. High Bridge itself is Grade 2 listed and dates from 1788. It originally cost £3,500 to build and is the oldest surviving bridge across the River Kennet. So here we are, at the end of our walk around the River Kennet in Reading. Thank you for joining us.